All right, if y'all don't mind, we're gonna go ahead and start on time. And feel free to get your plate. Come, go, back, forth, whatever you like. We're gonna be very informal tonight. We appreciate any guests or visitors that we might have. And I think we will get started with a prayer and a pledge with Brother Shelley.
Let's pray together. Lord, we're grateful for this beautiful, beautiful day, and we thank you for being with us, and we're grateful to be able to gather together to be about the work of the airport. We pray for your wisdom. We pray for our community that we love so much. Help us to make good and thoughtful decisions for the good of everybody. In Jesus' name.
Amen.
Stand, please stand.
To the flag of the
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Chad, did we have anybody that signed up for public comment?
No, sir.
Right. Item that we need to take care of is approval of the March 17th Airport Commission meeting minutes. I'll get it out.
Move approval.
Have a motion for approval. I need a second. Motion and a second. And
I'll call your roll.
we'll let Chad call the roll.
All right. Shelby Hunton. Bill Shacklet. Drew Shelley.
Aye.
Valeska Starnes. Steve Walter.
Hey,
And just repeat on the, Drew made the motion and Bill second.
Well, I think Shelby shot second.
Okay. Ayes.
item number 4 looks like, Chad.
All right. So during our budget discussions, we did talk a little bit about those other additional fees that we charge. And so I wanted to bring these to your attention and then request your approval of some other ones dealing more with the rental of the conference room and business center and things like that. So and Ryan could chime in too on these. This is kind of a breakdown of ramp fees. So this is your transient traffic, anything over 49 feet, which is usually the King Air and that kind of any of our jets and things like that. It's $50 a day. And our ramp fee, if they come in, explain that, there's the overnight, but then there's also a ramp fee just for coming in and parking for a little while. What is that, Ryan?
So, and this applies for just pretty much all their two-seater kind of type planes, anything that's a group one. If you come in for the first hour, it's free. So if you're just doing a quick turn or picking somebody up, we're not going to charge you a ramp fee. It's just $5 for the day if you're just going to be here for the afternoon. And then it's $10 a night from there. And then as you can see on there, if you come to us and say, hey, we're going to be in and out for like a week, we'll drop it down to $7 a night for a weekly chunk. So we can stretch that as far as you need to be.
And then we waive those fees if there is a fuel purchase, and less than 7 nights and less than fuel, right?
There's a couple of contingency statements for fuel waiving, but yeah.
Are you saying we're currently charging $5 if you're here for 2 hours? We have
Yes,
been?
this is current, yes. Mhm.
Catering fees, that's something we don't get a great deal of. Every once in a while from NetJets or something like that. GPU, typically it's just the startup. Very, very rarely do we get the for an hour or something like that where the customer asks for it to be cooled down, have the air conditioning running. But typically we get the startup. And then transient T hangar, if that's available, it's $30 per night. And that it doesn't matter if they purchase fuel or anything like that. That's where we're at.
This is what you charge right now.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Let's do a little clarity on that first group, if you don't mind, back to the ramp fee. So you're not making a gallon minimum, which I see a lot of places. If you buy X gallons, we're waiving that ramp fee.
So the way we do it now is, let's say you're, for example, if you're here for 3 nights, that's $30. Your fuel purchase needs to exceed that, is our rule of thumb. So yes, if you're here for 3 nights and you only buy a gallon just to be a smarty pants, you're still gonna get your ramp fee.
I don't know that I wouldn't like to just see us go to a minimum gallon number and make it a little easier. You basically just say, you know, I don't know, there's 2 or 3 ways to look at it. The other thing that you're telling me, and I'm kind of equating to something like PDK, for instance. PDK, you just come in and literally, if you keep your engine running and try to duck somebody off, they're calling you on the radio, trying to tell you, you got to come pay your ramp fee. So I know we don't want that, but I'm just saying, maybe we need a line that just says, you know, drop-offs, you know, no charge or something like that or whatever. And I'm just doing this for clarity
Mhm.
in years to come and, you know, things kind of come and go and change and so forth.
And Ryan, remind me, we do have this posted in the, as you come in off the ramp on that TV, it's rolling through different, just 2 or 3 slides for pilots. And then other places that this would be posted would be,
Our website, it's
On
under
the
the pilot
website.
fees and sort of section on the
Mhm.
website.
But if you compare us to another airport that is like ours
Mhm.
and not PDK, like just going to Clarksville or something, you walk in and they say ramp fee.
Mhm.
So, I mean, it's been a while since we've been up there, but I don't think that they had a minimum, that it was the same. It was just a fuel purchase. But
Didn't say
I-
gallons.
No,
And I've been to
But I-
several, like I said, I've been to both. I've been to some that say certain amount of gallons and been to some that don't, you know, regardless. And of course, you've got that on the big planes, regardless of fuel purchase, you're charging them $50. So if you get a net jet that just comes in and drops somebody off and the guys, you know, do a 30-minute turn or something, they're still getting hit for $50 or no?
Yes, yeah, all the NetJet planes that come in, even the Pilatus is considered a Group 2 or higher, so they're getting immediately charged for that $30 ramp fee,
we
or
haven't,
$50.
and I don't, and we've had repeat customers. I don't think we've had any too much
No,
grumbling
No,
back on
very
that.
rare we get much pushback.
so Group 2 is a NetJet.
Yes,
So, and you're saying they're the ones that, and they do not have a fuel minimum.
They're
No.
paying regardless.
yeah, they're paying the ramp fee regardless of fuel purchase. Even if they do buy fuel, it doesn't matter how much fuel they buy, they're still paying the ramp fee.
Say that they probably would choose to have a minimum as as somebody, I mean, obviously, I'm not a corporate pilot, but I'm very familiar with it. And most of them would prefer to have a minimum fuel purchase. And then they typically buy fuel so that they don't have to pay the ramp fee. Because it's a win-win for them. It's like they're gonna have to pay something either way. So if you have put in there's a minimum, then they get something for that.
Right, well, and that's perfectly valid. In my experiences working with NetJets here at Murfreesboro, they're coming to Murfreesboro because of the location. And we're substantially cheaper than, you know, any other mainstream location. So the thought of a ramp fee and a fuel purchase is nothing compared to them if they were to go to like B&A.
Correct.
But you're just asking to give the option.
Give the option.
But now
Is
the,
that what you're,
You can, and like I said, I mean, I guess the thing is, to those people, unless they're a private or charter company, not a net jet, they're just passing that stuff on. They don't honestly, probably don't even care. But I'm either way.
so how long has this been in effect?
and for the last couple of years, I think.
We started doing this pretty heavily, applying it about the time that we did the vote on the new fuel pricing structure. We came in with this. I mean, we had a ramp fee structure prior to that, and I can't remember the details of it, but they weren't really getting consistently applied. We've been consistently applying this for a while now.
Okay, well, I know that when we've had some discussions and people have communicated from the community, that has not been the case. The, you know, the other thing, unless you're gonna offer CAA fuel or some of these other type of fuel purchase plans, that's the other reason why they're not buying fuel here. Yeah, they just will pay the, $50 fee and go on and buy fuel somewhere else.
So we do participate in the Titan contract fuel program, and that can provide some substantial thing. There's some ramifications to CAA that affects the FBO. The work that you have to do on the FBO side is pretty substantial. Titan, some of the recommendations we've got from them is you will be slave to CAA. So we weren't ready for that just yet. And we got into the Titan program, a year ago, maybe?
Well, probably closer to-
As long with the Atlas. So it's maybe baby steps to get into the CAA, but that we were pushing our accountants on our Titan program. That's probably the next step, is to investigate, CAA and some of those other programs outside of Titan.
Okay, so you're asking us to approve these fees, but you're saying that you've already had them in.
We experimented with them to see where we wanted to be. Let's test the market for a little while. When we came into the new building, now we've got pilot supplies, now we've got coffee, now we got ice. Let's kind of feel the market out. So now we're at that point, we're talking about budget. Let's see, how do you guys feel about this? We've worked with this. We haven't had a lot of, complaints, a lot of customers coming back, the same ones. So, here's our feedback. This is what we felt from the customers that have come in and out. Do you have any suggestions? Does this look good? We'll move forward. If not, if there's any suggestions, we can tweak these things.
Okay, I think it needs to be tweaked, but
I mean, that's easy to do, with the, give them the choice of a ramp fee of $50, or we charge them enough gallons that it almost makes up for $50. You're gonna pay us one way or the other
well,
for
that's
being
what
out
I
there.
was saying.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what I was saying, is
Yeah.
typically if you do a minimum. they'll-
And here's some of the things that we're up against. 4750 on runway, hot, humid day, maybe have to go light on the fuel. Traffic, you're already ticked off because somebody just cut you off landing. And those were kind of we kind of kept it light and easy for those kind of issues that we were getting from pilots. Yeah.
$50 it's a good deal.
Oh, no, it is. I agree. I will say that our friend that just came in the MU2 and he was cut off, he just told him, he said, I need you to go around. And they went
Yeah.
around.
Yeah.
They obliged, they didn't,
Yeah.
there was,
That doesn't always happen.
that doesn't always happen. I mean,
Brian, how often are you getting even the ability to give somebody a transit T hanger per night?
Pretty consistently. I mean, if someone requests it, I would probably say about 75% of the time it's available. We only have one that we keep reserved for that. Most of the time it's people are wanting it if there's going to be icing conditions in the morning, or if there's a storm coming through, they'll ask to be put in it.
So having said that, and I realize that's a service that maybe we want to continue, maybe we don't. But if we're looking at revenue, are we making enough to justify keeping it? Are we doing that thing 12 nights out of a month, year round?
Well, our year to date for the transient hangar is $720. So
From January to today.
yeah, that's just from January to today.
And that's what price hanger right now in the current?
Well, it's in the H hangars. Do you remember off the top of your head the H?
330, something like that.
So that's why I say,
Yeah.
I realize it's a service, and I realize I'm not trying to cut out a service that's super nice to have, but when we've got waiting lists and we're talking about, $3,800 a year of our 4,000 of income, we might have to consider that.
Mhm.
And I'll share this, the transient hangar that we have available, H10, it's in the group of blocks that kind of have the water issues. And so anytime there's a good rain, It's literally running through the
Right.
hangar. And that's the reason we chose that one
Sure.
as the transient hangar, because no one's gonna be storing anything except tucking a plane out from the environment, so.
But we can buy a set of, we can buy the lieutenant a pair of mucks for cheaper than.
Oh, yeah, no, it's just, that's why we chose that particular hangar. I got,
Going the wrong way.
I think that if you go backwards and you don't have the transient hangar, then each time there's new hangars built, you're always gonna go, let's just fill them and not
Mhm.
have that offered.
Mhm.
And I know that wherever we go, we always call ahead to say, do you have? a
It's nice
hangar?
to have, sure.
Yeah,
But it's a service that we're paying for. I'm saying
Mhm.
that's a service that we're paying, we're losing dollars on. And
I think
and
when
we're-
we designated as the transient hangar, Chad and I kind of recognized that we weren't gonna get equal revenue from it. It is just, it's amenity that we wanted to be able to provide if possible. And we don't take reservations. We had one situation where it was 3 people gunning into MBT to avoid a storm, and we gave it to the first person to hit the ground. It,
Yeah.
you know, so.
Do you know what y'all pay? Your range, a price for overnight.
about that.
Okay.
Yes. I mean, Michael pays that, he pays more than that to go to Louisville.
Sure, and that's
So,
why I was
I mean,
wondering
I think
whether or
he
not
pays
that needs to be
175.
bumped a hair or not. If you're good with it, we'll move on.
The hangar is not desirable. I wouldn't want that hangar.
It
if
has its
you're
cons,
saying
yes,
It has a
ma'am.
river running through it. I mean,
Okay, any other thoughts on the numbers that are up there?
Is everybody okay with $5? I just think that's kind of ridiculous.
I think it could be higher.
I mean, I'm saying,
if you're just here for a day,
don't
it's
even.
like, yeah,
why
no,
not
it's,
just
Yeah.
charge if you're overnight.
yeah, if you're
It
overnight.
probably costs more in accounting to.
Yeah.
Charge
What's the
$5.
rationale for that one, Ryan, the
Then
$5
it's
for one
bad
day?
for Surrounding airports.
It was
We're
arbitrary.
charging
It's what I've
$5
done
to land.
historically at
Just to
other
stay
airports that I've
Mm.
worked at. It's just, it's just
And
a
monitoring the
placeholder.
first hour and so forth and so on.
I
Yeah,
think that
I
should
would,
be,
yeah.
go away.
I think that if it's an overnight,
Is Lebanon or Gallatin charging for more than 1 hour?
Again, I think it comes down to checking the time, keeping track of those folks on the ramp if you can. I think our guys are,
We've got a system in place to help us monitor it. It's come a long ways from what it used to be as far as keeping track of
Mhm.
transient
I'm
aircraft.
fine with all that except for the $5.
what do you,
what about the conference room and the? business
well, yeah,
area?
and I'll talk about that here in a little
Okay.
next.
I think Shelby's saying he wants to just eliminate unless it's overnight, just make it free.
Okay. Good with that.
I mean, what do y'all think?
We brought this to you just to show you what we are doing because
Yeah.
we did get discussions on what are our revenue sources other than hangar rent. So we wanted to show you what we've been doing and, get some input on what you guys feel like we could do to get more. Take out the $5 a day, that's the opposite direction, but what can we do to increase revenue? Now, there's only so many services we can offer at MBT. We don't have as Chad mentioned, the larger runway. So like, for example, we have de-icing capabilities, but it's limited to a 6-foot ladder and a backpack breaker. So I'm not going to be able to de-ice net jets, but if you show up in your 182 and you got some frost on you, we can help you out. kind of. It's Just an example.
I mean, personally, I'm fine with dropping the $5 fee today. I mean, for the one, if somebody flies in for 3 hours, 4 hours, sure, don't charge them anything. I personally would bump up the transit T hangar. If you're gonna keep it, I'd go to 35 a night. I don't think $5 anybody's gonna turn around at all if that's what they're doing. But that's just a personal thought.
Yeah, I can see that.
All right, Chad, hit the conference room.
All right, so conference room right now is 50, business center is 150 per hour. I think moving the business center up 25 and the conference room 25 isn't gonna change anybody's opinion on renting this place. It's our schedule is full. Then in that same range, kind of introducing that meeting training room, bringing that into line and kind of easing that into about $100. Now it's going to be, it's about 3/4 of this size of this room. And it is not going to have the full capabilities that this room has as far as electronics, the cameras and things like that. It's going to be meeting room capable. So if we have a meeting in there, we can record the audio. We won't have visual. Now we can do a Zoom and a Teams type of meeting, those kinds of things we can do. But we're not going to have all the capabilities that we have in this room. And it's going to be pretty much set up always for a meeting, training kind of situation, classroom. We're not going to have round tables and that whole thing. So it will be rented out to the public, mostly used for city and commissions and board type things. But I definitely see we can rent it out at night because I'll see, we do have some businesses that come in here and do some different meetings or training sessions or stuff like that that's from the public. So I see that being rented out besides as a city function as well. So those are kind of the rates that we kind of like to go into for starting July 1. Anything that isn't scheduled, they'll keep their rates, but anything moving forward will get the new rates. And I think for this fiscal year, just to keep this in mind, business center and conference room, mostly the business center, we're looking at about $48,000 estimated what we'll bring in at the end of the year. So that's really good. Every weekend, we've got 2 or 3 events scheduled from Friday night, Saturday, and especially this time of year with all the graduation parties and everything going on.
From a standpoint of the city just shifting hats, is there any money that transfers when a city?
Yes, and so
Meeting does-
they are helping us, and that's part of the negotiation. That's part of the discussions that we're having right now as we bring in that facility, because it will be a key room that we can use for our police and fire training, because we don't have a lot of those facilities right now, and there's other groups within the city that use that. So for example, April Robinson, who is the facility manager here that takes care of all the restrooms and cleaning and everything like that, that goes through the general fund to help offset the costs here with these facilities. We're looking at the maintenance agreements and things like that for this room, because the high tech part of it, we're into 5 years now on a lot of this equipment. So some of this is having to be replaced and things like that. So that's really not an airport expense. That comes into more of our general fund expense. So some of those things are being paid for through general fund that isn't coming out of airport fund. So that's kind of that negotiation that goes on internally regarding some of these facilities. The conference room, my office, have a similar Zoom package and really has zero maintenance associated with it. The lobby has some technology, but again, it's pretty bulletproof until I just said that and something will go wrong, but
So the meeting training room is.
it's gonna be the MTSU classroom, yes.
Did you say it's 3/4 the size of this room?
Yeah, if you take pretty much where this table is where that wall is. And I'll show you, just a second, I got a picture of this. Here we go. So this is where the heating and air conditioning units are. Here's the room, and then there's this executive lounge in here. So we're wanting to keep that executive lounge, just change it up a little bit. And the reason is that during the week, we have a number of times where this room is full, the conference room is full, and we don't have any other place to put anybody having a check ride, a little impromptu meeting. Somebody flies in and needs a little space. Our next spot is the pilot lounge. We really don't want to use that for someone having a meeting, try to keep those folks to themselves. So this allows for a little meeting room. There's a TV here where you can do some sort of a Zoom meeting or, thing like that. And then we have an office. don't have an office for April or anybody else in expansion. And she's gathering a lot of different materials for cleaning and parts and booklets on all the different things we have in the building here to keep up with it. And this would give us that. So we can rent that out for, by the hour for a little meeting here. But then breaking this room down, picture about 60 to 70 of these types of tables and chairs, a little bit smaller, more like what you've seen at in conferences and things like that. And you're going to see, instead of the projector type screens, we're looking at larger screens, more like these, but having them across the room and one in the back for the speaker. So everything will be out of that podium, controlled, pretty plug and play, really easy as compared to this room.
Brian, are y'all getting any wedding requests in any spaces here?
We haven't had an actual wedding.
We
yet where
have.
people- Have we?
Yeah,
They
we've
said
had a
their
wedding.
vows here and
Mhm,
everything? Okay. I know
mhm.
we've had several
Perception.
Receptions,
exceptions,
yeah,
yes, but
celebrations of life, probably more than those, than weddings, unfortunately.
So when will this be?
This will come
available?
available, we're looking at mid-August. So MTSU will be going in and they'll be, part of their agreement is to remove all their logos and everything in those rooms and put them back to how they received it from the very beginning. The MTSU logo will go away here, and then in the lobby, that one TV will be returned to the city, and we'll be putting probably city type information out there on it.
You're saying this is fully booked out.
This is booked out a lot.
So why don't we go up a little bit on the $100, maybe to 145, or if for the meeting training room?
We could, yeah, that was just a suggestion to try to kind of hit in between this, but you're absolutely right. We could go up on that 125.
Quarters,
Mhm,
This size,
mhm.
135 cents.
135. That would make up for your $5.
Mhm.
Sure. Second hour.
How would you propose, like, so if you're going to put the police and those sort of things that are going on in here over there, do they require a luncheon or any of those sort of things? How are you gonna-
Typically not, and that's pretty easy to put up tables and set that up for them to grab, like a, kind of like almost buffet style, but they typically like to go out, take a
Okay, I
little
just
break
didn't
from
know if
here.
you were gonna-
Yeah.
if in the rental of that area, if you would be saying that they still have access to this.
It'll,
Isn't it- I feel like
Yeah.
that going across the,
it will depend, that'll be a little bit of, we'll have to see. This is our first choice for any type of party that's gonna have catering or stuff like this. There's several events that we have here where we just set up that table back there and the caterer just comes in here and they never use the kitchen except maybe to get ice. So I could see that happening in that end too. Now that one doesn't, because of that wall, it doesn't have the cool, look into the ramp and things like that. It's pretty much just you're renting a
police don't need
space.
to see the ramp, do they?
well, and something to add too, with that classroom, it's gonna be in a classroom setup, and that's the setup
Yeah.
you get.
Yeah.
It's not gonna be like
Yeah,
this
I've been
room
in
where
there.
we'll roll in round tables. It'll
Yeah.
have those tables and chairs in that position, and that's how you get that room.
Okay.
Chad, the furnishings that you had on the other slide, is that
Mhm.
coming out of general fund?
Yes, yes,
Not
that's
out of airport?
right.
Okay.
So yeah, and this is the breakdown. AV equipment, about $55,000, furniture, 64,000. We're still gathering those numbers right there, but that's in the ballpark of what we're looking at. And that's
I've only-
covered under,
Do they not have, is there not furniture in there now? I've been in there one time.
yeah, you don't want that furniture. It's about
They're
a,
gonna take it with them.
it's about a 15-minute chair.
Oh,
And if you're in
okay.
there for training,
They-
you want a
they
2-hour
they
chair.
Furnish that?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay, I didn't.
And that will go with them.
Okay.
We have asked them about the furnishing in here because we're really not changing too much in there, except for this table and some chairs around it. But I doubt, I think they'll probably put that someplace else on campus. Or down the Shepherd.
All right, I'd like to make a motion that we do away with the second hour, so no hourly fee. Let's raise the transient tea anger We're all good with 38. Let's do 38. Sure. $38 a night. And the meeting training room, instead of 100 proposed, I think, let's do 140. And everything else would remain the same.
Okay.
Okay.
Did you?
Actually, I'll wait till after this. Never mind.
All right, we have a motion. We're looking for a second.
Did you include taking away the $5?
Yes.
That was in, okay.
Yeah, so no $5, 38 per night, and 140.
You said 140, 140. Yeah, I hate to put it too close to the business center because you are still 3/4 of the size.
I'll second that.
All right, motion is second. Any other discussion on the motion? If not, please call the roll.
Shelby Hunting,
Yay.
Bill Shacklet,
Aye.
Drew Shelley,
Aye.
Aliska Starnes, Steve Walden.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Do you, on this rental of this space,
Mhm.
obviously, I asked at the last moment to use the conference center for when a child has hit a milestone or whatever, but we haven't been here all day. People, other tenants that use the space over and over and over and over again, do they get first right to use the space?
So typically what I've done is this is a city facility. So, for example, the city council workshop, that's pretty much on the schedule all the time, second Thursday of every month.
Okay,
There are a few other groups, Sports Authority, a few others that we've already scheduled in. And then from there on, we kind of go first come, first serve on whoever puts in an application for us to use the facility. EAA, here's an example. Civil Air Patrol, for example, is a Tuesday night. They usually start around 6 o'clock. Sometimes what we've done is we've swapped, since they're already associated with MTSU and they're not using the room, we'll ask MTSU, can Civil Air Patrol meet in there so that we can have an event in here? And so that way, and that's kind of where I see this happening, is this gives us a whole nother option for another meeting facility, and someone like EAA or Civil Air Patrol, those types of groups can meet in there, no problem. Again, for the technology that they need, not a big deal.
I mean, my thought is like, if the police are here, which I do, I see them here
Yeah.
a lot.
Yeah.
But then, and I don't know what kind of, if they, like what you were saying, is that what kind of, because it's all city.
Yeah,
But if somebody else that is wanting to pay full price,
now we've
Or
got some
some-
options, yeah.
okay,
And typically when they do come in, sometimes it's a one-day affair, but sometimes it could be a 2 or 3 day training. So it's best to leave them in one space. That's why that will free up this space for rental and allow them to still do what they need to do.
And I think just to help alleviate some of the concern, when we first opened up and the city was using the facility a lot, we did compare the numbers, and forgive me, I can't cite them now, but the cost of employing April full-time far exceeds the hourly commitment that the city consumes. That's a couple years old numbers that I've slept since then, but last time we looked at it, it was competitive.
And we do want to keep some meeting space available for those impromptu meetings. It may be a check ride. It may be, someone just
Right.
flying in and we don't have that space, and that'll allow us that. We thought about taking that wall down, but the space was important. It was important to have that extra room, and it's just that little room that we need that we don't have.
can we revisit this in
Mhm.
like
Yeah, we could
4
give,
months? Because depending, I mean, with summer travel,
Mhm.
I'm thinking about, people coming in and rent fees, and
Mhm.
kind of
Yeah.
get an idea of what,
why don't we
That's
can
bringing
look
it.
at it after the summer. Let's say, let's look at it in October, because then we get that summer, September, last minute fall kind of, before school or just as school starts and then look at it, because then that'll set us up for the next year's budget discussions.
Okay, we're gonna, reverse order here. Let's do 6. Next, update on approach mitigation.
All right. Gonna get your stuff up. Your computer may need to be turned back on. Oop, there it is.
All right, so we haven't talked to y'all about this in a little while. Put that off because this is the project.
I thought you just going to put a bunch of beavers out or something.
We'll talk about that today, actually. We'll talk about how it's a wet area. But we had the report from NV5 from a couple years ago that showed all these objects, all these things. Well, there was some planning surfaces, they're not all tailored to exactly what's happening. So the instrument approaches out here that establish everything are 20 to 1. Visual, and there's FAA 20 to 1 approach. So there's no out there that is important planning document. So what we did is we took all the data, went back and applied the 20 to 1 to it, and then went back and rescaled everything, put it out where it is. So we're down to 25 parcels.
Out of 70.
Out of 70.
Wow.
That 34 to 1 went way across Northfield, reached out to a lot of different parts. So this is, we've actually done a little bit more analysis than this. We're gonna hit, properties along Harold Lane. We're gonna have a few across Northfield. And then, of course, the complex. One of the things that, so this is basically what we have. We do have a couple of across the road. That we'll pick up and scale this, but the one thing I did want to show you is the line that you see right now along the bottom up across, that shows existing easement, like it's literally on back of the properties. And it runs down. That's what you already have authority to do. So what we're talking about mainly is gonna be the front yards of most of these houses. And along Northfield, and then across the ones on Hill. One of the things we were talking about today that we hadn't really thought about was, our sub-consultant. The next value of the properties are established. Well, most of these properties already have these. Should less than that, next value shouldn't be as bad as if we established the trend. So today, what we did was kind of kick off phase 2 with our sub-consultant to get her our information, transfer our information to her. She will then start looking at what we're going to do for our outreach. We're going to set up some meetings with city council, with boards. Then she will go into reaching out to property owners and start working through the process of who's going to play ball, who's not going to play ball, what some of the parameters are. What are people asking for in return? We've talked about remove and replace. We have Middle Tennessee Electric's guidance on what they approve and the city of what they have as well as their approved list of trees in this area. Of course, under low growth, that shouldn't be a problem in the future. And we will start working through that process with her to get where we need to get with what we need to do in phase 2. Phase 2 would be where we actually go in and buy the easements and get the final approval to go in. So,
And say again, how many property owners are we now looking at?
25.
25 total
25 total parcels.
property owners, okay.
Due to the removal place, the tree line. So one of the things we had talked about was we're gonna clear all these trees out, and these people are gonna be looking out their backyard and see the apartment complex. You might get to see. I have to pull that out.
25 is all just what we're seeing. It's not anything across Northfield?
Yeah, there's one or two this was an earlier
Okay.
study and we've actually added a couple more. But that's that one.
That first drawing we saw, there were some that were going up Highland and all that. Those were into 34-1s and some other surfaces that are not as critical. Now, just to set expectations straight, you know, we may go in there and go in and remove and replace and all that, and there'll still be, we'll do some surveys along the way. At the end, there still may be a tree here or there that has missed this process, but that's one where we can go in with our own airport overlay zone and go in on an individual basis and go in and get those. And we'll decide then, is it connected to all these other easements? Should we buy an easement, or can we just is it just one tree that we can plop out, you know, purchase, whatever, remove and replace on an individual basis?
So one of the things we were talking about was planting infrared. So there's a differentiator of rate. So this is what we talked about, planting 42 trees and then some redbud trees on the front end. And that would eventually you would back to this property.
And there's some things too, given the elevation of that property. When you're in this area, it's high. In fact, there's from that, it goes up in here, and then it all kind of falls down into this area. So there's a lot of opportunities that we could do kind of on their very back area to plant trees that'll help screen that screen there. That's all those things that we'll kind of have to discuss with each landowner as to where and, you know, what trees and stuff they want to out of the list.
So the 1, 2, 3, the 4 houses that are on Harold Lane that back up on the, I guess that, yes, right there. How far does their property go back?
All the way. The third, fourth, and fifth house.
Yes.
Literally 3/4 of their property they can't build on.
Has anybody walked?
Easement,
Mhm.
which means we don't have to purchase tree.
Those,
We can-
so, anything in that line, you have the right.
Go back to the last slide if you can. Let's see the trees themselves that are outside of the, if we can you zoom on that any at all?
Yes.
Has anybody walked any of that?
Mm-hmm.
What type, what kind, are they just like?
Oh.
Are they just like shagbark trees or?
No
What kind-
shade, yeah.
Yeah, what
Because
are-
that's bad study, yeah, that's.
It's older.
A lot of it's old.
Some of them are really, in some of that really tight grouping, what you see in there are tall trees that have grown up, and then at the very top is where they form their canopy.
Mhm.
So, you know, when we get into trimming, it was really difficult to trim because if you trimmed what you needed to trim, you were just creating a telephone pole.
Could there be dialogue with these homeowners that if there's any would, you know, there's people that want,
Mm.
certain things that they could have the timber.
If they want, I would say, in the negotiation, if they wanted, they could have.
Yeah.
We talked about that a little bit too, in order to have a more timber person take it out. There's not.
You could
But
do
if you-
maybe a select cut,
Mhm.
Yeah.
if there's some good stuff.
Mhm.
And if they knew that they were gonna get from, all 4 of the places.
Unfortunately, a lot.
Yeah.
And so it's cost trade-off with. But then become. especially those people want to come in. I've done this on there for longer, but their work for the church.
Mhm.
Because they, y'all are gonna do it. But, we'll clear a lot of it up. Can't cut. and
How many total trees are we now in this
Hmm.
20 to 1?
I can give you an answer once we get off here in the secondary. It'll take me like 5 minutes, but I can get you that number.
But, you know, our game plan though is everything that you see here. We want to take it out, take it down, and replace plantings on front yards, on back property, low growth. And have some light of it.
What do we do for PR?
Good, it's one good. Helmets and helmets.
Well, I don't think so. I mean,
There's-
it'd be the same as like B and A doing noise abatement. I mean, there are people that are gonna be upset, but at the same time, it's not, I don't think it's gonna be.
No, so that's why we've hired WD Shop, and they've done this all over the country. And some people that are involved, and this is what they do. They do. Some of our timing on this, we have our little assessment done right now. So there's gonna have to be a component. We're trying to time that. Right now, what we're doing with her for the next 2 weeks, is we're going to build out marching list. Here's what we're gonna do. Here's what- Notify everybody. We do not want this to get out in front of all these people. So they get upset. Kind of.
Would you, so we can cut them for free, but we're gonna offer,
Yeah, well, right now, in the front yard, but outside of the dark line, we can't touch it. Right. So we're going to try to establish and negotiate. Lots of properties. And that-
we don't know those numbers.
And we don't know exactly what the EA requires either, as far as public hearings, meetings, all that, those types of things either. So we've really got a couple of marching orders right now is we're gathering some more information. Gonna get some sort of understanding of what that EA process is, what's gonna be required. What do we need from a local standpoint before we take it to city council as to what is the neighbors' input and things like that? What does that process look like? And then now that we've got an idea of how many properties and they've got a rundown of how many trees, we'll look to WD Shock to give us some sort of idea of what does that easement cost? How is that determined? So that we can put a cost to what is the easement's gonna cost us? What is it gonna cost us to take down the trees? What's it gonna cost us to replace the trees? Now we've got an overall cost for the next part of that project of moving in and doing this work.
So phase two, which we hadn't developed a contract for phase two, we kind of laid it out. Phase two will be the actual appraisal to determine the final value. The easements, purchasing the easements. And then,
We're saying purchasing for the front yard.
yeah, and some of them will be brand new.
If you were guessing, what would that cost? I mean, per property.
I know that easements are kind of fickle in aviation because there's no real guidance on the establishment of that. So we let the appraisers look at what the dimension value is, what the property's worth, and then they give us a value. It's usually a range that we work in, but there's no real super guidance on.
Can there be a holdout? I mean,
Has Shock given you any kind of a ballpark number as to what a range for tree removal and replacement is? The ballpark?
No, because we don't know exactly what each individual property owner wants. So that's what we're going to be gathering through this first phase, getting with you, saying what you need, what you want, what you need, what you want. Each property owner is gonna have.
Well, I'm just talking about take a tree out, put a tree back,
You know, we may
not
have,
even counting an easement.
we may have somebody come and say, hey, look, our property, please, I don't know. So there's, I'm sure we'll have a curveball somewhere in here.
Shelby, like just like purchasing property for the, using state and federal money, it'll have to be a two appraisal and review process just to make, that gives you a timeline of what that takes just to get that done.
I mean, they are going to be told that the airport was here first, correct? I mean,
It was different airport. It was a different airport.
it's a different airport, but it was still an airport.
So-
You know what I'm
so-
saying? Those houses, I mean. it's not like-
So when those easements went in place, that was in 48, 52. I think a lot of those homes were built after the fact, and you can kind of see that
I would say they
you
were
can
built
see that they
for-
understood the easement was there, but they built right up to, literally their back door swings into the easement area. So they know that it's well aware of it. And as we've gone in there and trimmed trees, I could tell them I can be in your backyard, but something up front, unless you allow me to go trim a tree, I'll have to negotiate with you. So they're aware of that does exist in their backyard.
We would like those houses, right?
That would be nice to have for me.
The backyards that they're not using, I mean, that would be great if they'd sell you the center line of the runway all the way as far as you could go in there. That would be a win-win. Then you could establish a fence line, and then you could do a hedgerow along the fence, and they really don't see anything else. But yeah, that might come up in negotiation, so that's kind of, until we find out exactly what everybody wants, we can't what we're trying to do.
How many do we own on Harold now? 4?
Those are,
Yeah.
those are the duplexes out there.
Yeah.
And once again, in the first 4 bits and pieces of all, and the last 3 are still individually owned.
These are the ones that we don't own. This one, we don't own that one. This is the 4 groupings that are 4 buildings, 8 units that we're.
And once again, we have an easement across the back, so you see where this, T89, T90, those 2 are, we can get those, but the T77 at the top, and once the 45, y'all own those properties.
And some of those may already be down with the properties that we've purchased.
So, but as you see, like on the top of the screen there, there's the T70, that doesn't have any number. Flat out brand new. Out of the 25, there's gonna be quite a few of those brand new easements.
Bill, have you had any discussions whatsoever with the council as to what's coming forward?
No.
They know that it's coming, but we really didn't want to discuss any details until we knew
Saw it.
what the scope is. And now we've really brought that scope down to something that looks manageable. A lot of it is already under easement, but there's still going to be a lot of negotiations going on. Just because it's going to be, most of those trees are in your backyard and it's behind an easement, I'm sure we'll have some discussions,
And we may get to a point where, we may get to a point where the negotiations are stalled out. And there's enough easement and enough trees in the easement. And the apartment complex may want to go ahead and play ball, but we might go ahead and bid out a project, be clear as much as we can. And then individually go in and work the rest later. Because that's going to clear a significant amount out. And it's not gonna solve the problem, but it's going to solve.
Who owns that apartment complex? Are they? I mean, well, I know, actually, those aren't those townhomes, right? It is the apartments?
It's the apartments.
Okay.
It's out of state, I think. Yeah.
North Carolina, I think is who
mean-
I was talking to when I went to North Carolina.
And if it was a local person, if they would be
They're out of state.
like, from your Kim.
And the about it, most of them we have an easement anyway. So we can just outline. There's not a lot of negotiation. Communicating with them.
A lot of those,
This has been, I don't even know, Chad, now how many years I have been on the board, but it's been an ongoing problem from the time that I was here, 20 years or so, where all we've done is we put Band-Aids on it every 4 or 5 years, and then we'll get our hand spanked from the state saying that you're out of compliance, and, we've never really taken care of the problem. And we've probably held this off just as long as we possibly can. There's really no way around moving this thing forward, and that's my only hope, is that we'll have the support of the council behind us, and that they'll realize that this has been an issue that's been going on for 25, 30 years. And it just continues to get worse. And, we trim, and then we waste a lot of money trimming instead of just taking them down.
And that's
So-
why we may need to move with.
What you can.
Once we
What you
get
can
down,
do.
everybody knowing what we're doing.
Right.
And as negotiations going on, it may be in the best interest, because funding, we're gonna need to bring TDOT in and start talking about the funding to clear. And that's a pretty known number. So we could go ahead, get started with that, and then package the rest of it up as part two.
Right.
We could offer free airplane rides for the city.
right.
council. See why we want yeah.
Oh, that is something I've offered a neighbor or two that complained about the pattern or something like that. And why are they coming so low, or why? And I've offered some rides, and some have taken it up and got a new perspective of, from the pilot's perspective. It helped.
All right, we don't need any motions on this of any
No,
kind.
this is just for us to kind of show you where we are, how we filtered through it, and what we're gonna do next. So the next thing that we'll bring to you guys is where we're gonna take this with Deputy Shock and start to get some meetings.
All right, any other thoughts on this? If not, let's update on contract tower.
Sorry, this is Duncan.
Hello.
I'm sorry, he's been here with me before, but I keep thinking Duncan's been with Barge about 2 years now, and he hadn't made it a year. But Duncan is one of our lead planners, and knows more about this than I do, so I'm glad to have him.
Nice to meet you.
All right. Thank you, Vincent. Thank you,
We can
Duncan.
talk about the tower.
Yeah, well, on the tower, where we're at right now with it is that I think we finally got through the environmental issue. That had been going back and forth since July. We submitted the initial environmental.
Determination checklist. And Chad is not, y'all are not a boat by yourself. There have been environmental delays back and forth. TDOT, and then them relying on FAA, and then FAA has lost a bunch of employees, and it has just been back and forth. And so we're going through this, 3 or 4 other airports in the same thing. So we got 2 different answers twice. We didn't like the last answer. And so Smyrna got away with what we wanted. So we went and asked Smyrna what they did, and we've resubmitted, and hopefully we'll get the answer. that we want.
Smyrna is relocating their tower. And that tower is how, I guess, goes back to World War II maybe. So it's need of replacement at this point. So they're going through the same process right now as us, is going through site selection. And it's very difficult to get the funding to do the work, because one of the boxes in the checklist there is, have you done your environmental? Well, I can't do the environmental because I don't know the location. So what we ended up doing is putting a CADX together and looking at all 3 sites. And what's cool now is that you can go to a lot of the government websites now, and you can pull in your address and say, is there any historical issues on your property? No. You take a screenshot, you send that to them. Is there any wetlands in your area? Take a screenshot, you send it to them. Is there any, this or that, whatever categories there are, you can do that. And that's basically what we did for all 3 sites, to show them that there's nothing, but until they see the pictures and get the document, they wouldn't make that call. So I think we gave them everything we need to do. We followed the template from what Smyrna used. So now it's just a matter of waiting for them to do it. So that'll allow us to move to the next step in that. And actually, the next step is to have Barge do the survey work, send that into the FAA. Then the FAA will do their work on the virtual tower and heights and all that, and determine the appropriate location and height for the tower. And this will take about a year to do that work. So
If Chad didn't get what he got to the FAA, the environmental was gonna take a year and a half before we ever even get started with this. So, I know there's gonna be a lot of head banging on the desks because it's just not.
So I think we're moving forward on that one now. We've already talked about the furnishing. I did have a schedule for you for the next few months. It really takes us out to December regarding various events that are happening here. And also I kind of highlighted then some basic projects that are going to be coming up at these meetings or the meeting after, regarding the hangar pad and utility work. We're finally moving forward there. And we'll probably get you some more on the approach mitigation in July. Looking into September, October is going to be a very busy month with the Landsayer owner builders. Lobo Group will be here in October, Steam Fest, and other events across this year. But if there's anything else that you see that we need to be putting on our schedules, just let me know.
Okay, any other questions, thoughts, comments?
Can
Any
you,
other discussion anybody wants to bring up?
can you give us an update on MTSU?
Yes, so right now, what I've heard is that June or July, they will do a groundbreaking on their facility down in Shelbyville. So really, you know, for a building such as that with hangar and offices and classrooms and all that, kind of figure about 2 years. So we're in 2025, that would really kind of put them into summer of 2027 for completion, which would put that fall semester of 2027 is when we would see that movement occur for the flight training. That only takes care of the flight training. It doesn't address the maintenance labs. It is my understanding that they're going to go before the state starting now for the FY27 budget to ask additional funding for not only the maintenance lab, but I think to request more to try to get more facility built to really kind of meet that vision that they have for everything being in one place. And so that's my understanding. It's a big ask. It's about $100 million ask is what I understand.
So, but they're not going to be using that.
Classroom will be, yeah, they'll be moving out of that this summer. I don't think they're using it for any other classes. I'm not sure. But they will not be using that. And there will be some, they will be renting that space
Oh,
at times.
Okay.
There'll be some meetings that they have with their instructors that we will rent it to them. And they are trying to set aside every Monday from 8 to 9 or 8 to 10 that we'll work a deal with them, but we will rent that space to them.
What do they currently have in Hangar 2?
Hangar 2 is a classroom, and then they have a maintenance lab on some of the turbine engines and things like that. And then there's that lean-to that's closer to Hangar 3. That's their composite lab. So it's, you know, and they just recently kind of did an upgrade to that where they have a very, very, very small paint booth and redid a lot of that work in there, put an air conditioning unit in there, heat and air conditioning unit.
That lease goes through the same as the.
It's associated with the master lease agreement. So really, we've kind of put a date on our calendars of 2027 to see, okay, if things aren't moving down in Shelbyville, if funding isn't approved by the state, again, then what's plan B?
Right. All right, any other discussion, questions, talk? Chad, you have anything else?
I know.
All right, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Give it to somebody.
Second.